I decided to go ahead and put together a screencast for this week and give you a little information on how to put together an effective and a successful author visit. But before we get to that point, I know that a few of you guys did not have a chance to attend our online office hour a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week, and I really enjoyed it. I think some good questions were asked. If you have questions about the third assignment, there were some good discussions that took place, but some people may not know how to find the recordings. So because we used our new Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, you would click over here. When it loads, it's kind of hard sometimes to find it. It says there's no scheduled sessions. If you click over here, you look at previous sessions, you could see that, but you can't access those. So if you'll come over to the three parallel lines in the top left, click, you'll see your name, you'll see sessions, and then you'll see a link for the recording. So this is where you would be able to access that office hour. The remainder of the topic for this screencast will be Author Visits 101, Planning and Hosting Author Visits. So what are some benefits of author and illustrator visits? And if you can find a illustrator, we had one at Bob Courtway years ago, and she was fascinating. I can't draw anything that resembles anything I'm trying to make it look like, and she was phenomenal. But I had lost contact with her, and I don't know that she actually does visits anymore. But the benefits are it encourages reading for fun or reading for pleasure, which is something I think has kind of gotten lost in all of the technology and research, information literacy skills that we have to cover, and then all of the testing that takes place within our public schools right now. Can help to motivate struggling and reluctant readers. It can help support classroom learning, and I'll give you guys some examples and ideas of things that we did when we had author visits. Mine all stem from Greenberg Middle School, the ones that were really successful. It can improve writing confidence, it can make creativity accessible, and it can help inspire students. So those would be some benefits, things that you could take to your principal or your administration when you're trying to plead your case for an author visit. So I've included two links, and I will be sharing this PowerPoint. It will be in the same folder with the screencast, but one of the links is an article on an author's recommendations for a successful visit, things that they say help make the visit more successful. And then the second one is a blog link that has many different authors' perspectives on what makes an effective visit. So here is the first link, and this one is an interview with young adult novelist Cynthia Leitich-Smith. I can't say her name very well, but pretty much it has a question and answer section all the way through that gives you ideas as the librarian, or even if you're still in the classroom and can invite an author, what you need to do to prepare. And so first and foremost, you need to be familiar with the author, with their works, with what is their most current books, their best books, whatever, but you need to make sure that you are familiar with the works. You need to figure out, how much it's going to cost, if you are going to pre-sell or have books available so that when the author comes, if it's not a Skype or a Google Hangout version, how you're going to get, those books into the hands of the students, and then if they want to have the author sign those books. You need to decide, are you going to have one large presentation? Will you have smaller ones? Will you do, a lot of times authors will offer like a book, like a writer's workshop, and those are some of the most phenomenal things I've gotten to experience as the Greenberg Middle School librarian. So she goes through and tells you how to make contact, what the speaker fee is. Yes, most of them do charge it. The first thing to do is when you contact the author, or some of them have somebody who schedules their visits for them, ask how much is that fee. And so she goes through just the rest of information that is very, very, very helpful, and things things that would help make your visit much more successful. And she even goes into the virtual visits as well. So the link to the second one is a blog, and it's the author's answer. What made your best school visits great? So it's broken down. It has preparation as one of the topics. It has creativity, and it shows some of the different things that students did to help connect with the authors and what the teacher librarians did for them. You might recognize a lot of these author names as pretty familiar people. Cynthia Lord is one of my favorites. David Lubar, he's hilarious, and he is one of Jordan Sonnenblick, who did Drums, Girls, and Dangerous Pie. They're very good friends, and when Jordan Sonnenblick was here, he told lots of funny stories. And then it's also broken down into thoughtful attention for small details. And the last one, I just wanted to point out, David Lubar. It said one PTA mom had a cocktail delivered to his hotel room right after he checked in. And that may not be the sort of thing you need for the article, but I have to say, we had Kimberly Willis Holt come for ARASL. It was the summer conference in, I think, Eureka Springs years ago, and my mom and a friend of hers picked up, or they had to take Kimberly back to the airport for me. I think I picked her up and got lost in a minivan somewhere in the middle of nowhere. But that's a different story in and of itself. But my mom and Bev went to the store and they picked up a bottle of wine and some cheese and crackers and things for her to have in her room as a snack. And she said that was one of the neatest things that they could have done. So I don't know if you consume alcohol or not. You might check first with the author, but she said that was wonderful. So those are two articles that are available to you if you are attempting to put that together. I've also included a link to the Scholastic timeline for author visits. It's very helpful to let you see how much work and how much time it does take to put one together. And you can do it in less time, but pre-planning is always key. And I'm guilty all the time of waiting until the very last minute to do a lot of things. And if I would have followed a lot of the advice, I would have been less stressed. So this one is put together by Scholastic, and they have a great author visit, kind of a kit that they've put together to help you through your program. They'll also help you find authors that are willing to come. But it shows that you can start planning almost a year in advance, because if you are trying to secure the budget and you don't have enough money, you might need to apply for grants. One year we got one from, I think it was an electric company that paid $500 toward Roland Smith when he came. So then it shows you what you need to be doing 6 to 8 months out, 4 to 6 months out to help get the students and the teachers prepared, and then 3 to 4 months out, getting together with the author and coordinating travel and if they're going to rent a car or where they're going to stay, and then 1 to 3 months, and then, tips for when the actual author is there. So again, that's the link to the Scholastic timeline. It's very helpful. So how do you find an author? Well, local authors are great to have because typically they're very cheap. You don't have to pay overnight accommodations. You may have to pay a smaller fee if they're not really well known. And if you're a member of the AIM listserv, a lot of times information will go out as an email if somebody has an author visit and they think that it went very well, and they'll give information about how the visit went. If you check the Scholastic author visit site, it's a great tool to be able to click on and find it. If you want to find authors who Skype for free, I've included a link for that to Kate Messner's website. And then if you contact the publishers and locate the authors on their own websites, those are other ways you can find information on how to get those authors into your school or connect with them if it's virtual through Skype or Google Hangout. So I'm going to use the last little bit of the 15 minutes for a screencast just to go through some of the authors I've hosted. The people that have physically stepped into my library, other than Lisa Schroeder, were in this list. And then other authors that I've gotten to meet throughout my time as a school librarian from various conferences I've included down here. Every author I saw has blown me away just thinking about how much I love to read and how many connections they've made with the students. So I'll start with my first story, Dave and Pat Sargent. If you don't know anything about them, they did a lot of picture books for elementary students. And we had the entire series, all of the Dave and Pat Sargent books in my library. And I had a special needs student. His name is Kyle. Kyle is now probably 24, and he works at Kroger. And when I see him still, he remembers me. His bout in 5th grade and 6th grade, he only read nonfiction animal books. He loved animals, and that was all he wanted to do. Well, he couldn't pass any of the AR tests, and that was back when we still did AR, and every student, even our special needs students, were required to get a certain number of points. And he had a really hard time doing that. Well, in 7th grade, for some reason, he found those Dave and Pat Sargent books, which had animals as characters, and he was able to access that information, pass those quizzes, and he read over 50 books in that one school year. And oddly enough, Dave and Pat Sargent happened to walk into Greenboro Middle School that year. They came into my library. They had books with them. It wasn't a scheduled author visit, but it was the most amazing connection I have ever seen that Kyle made. I went down, I went and found him partway through the day and had him come into the library. And at first he wouldn't even come over to see them because he was so amazed. He stood over in a corner and just said, Dave and Pat Sargent, live and in person. And finally I got him to come over, and he met with them, shook their hand, we got a picture. It was amazing. It was probably one of the most touching things I've seen. But that was my first visit. But now here was the conundrum. I had a principal at the time, when he found out that Dave and Pat Sargent were in my library selling books, he was not happy. He thought that they should pay us to be able to come in and have access to the students who wanted to buy books. I couldn't convince him otherwise. And so anytime I broached the subject of having an author come and visit, that was his argument. And so finally, I don't even know what happened, I got Alexandria LaFay. That was back when Worth, the book Worth, is a fabulous read. If you have middle school, early or upper elementary, it's wonderful. It's a great read aloud, fabulous book. We got her, I was the parent involvement coordinator, that's what it was. So she came for a parent night, and she was wonderful. And I think he started to see the connections that could be made between students, parents, and these authors that wrote these books. We had a parent book club who read her book, and we discussed it as adults, and then the students also read it. So it was a great connection, and it was a very successful visit. And from there, he did release the purse strings and let me use my book fair money a lot of times to host the author visits. So from there, we had Roland Smith. He was wonderful as a speaker, kind of arrogant, but really liked him. Kimberly Willis Holt, she's a great friend of mine. She came and she was phenomenal. Jordan Sonnenblick, I can't tell you how much fun the kids had with him, and we did such a wonderful job with the cancer awareness program. We incorporated every content area in to his visit, and it was amazing. Every student in the building and every teacher read his book before they got there. With Roland Smith, we were able to give a copy of 2 of the different books to every student. Every 6th grader read Elephant Run, which tied into World War II, and that was back before they did like ancient civilizations. It was when they did, I guess, American history, and it was wonderful. And our 7th graders all read Peak in their social studies classes, because that one takes place in, I guess, over in Europe, wherever the Mount Everest is.